This gospel today is a continuation of the gospel last week. We need to know what happened last week to understand and follow what happened this week. And so, do you remember what the gospel was last week? The feeding of the 5,000. And if you forgot, it's okay because I forget too. So Jesus left, if you remember, at the end of that gospel, if you remember, Jesus left. They were going to come and carry him off and make him king. So he snuck away and left with the disciples across the sea to Capernaum. In this story, the people, the crowd, suddenly realize that Jesus is no longer there. And so they get in their boats and they chase Jesus to Capernaum. They're looking for Jesus, but Jesus knows what they're really looking for. They're not really looking for him. They're looking for a free meal. I kid you not, that's what they're looking for. He gave us free bread now. We just follow this guy around and he'll just feed us all the time. God does give us food physically. But feeding the 5,000 is a bigger sign. It is a sign that leads to something bigger that is going on. Something that points to something bigger, something larger. Jesus was trying to show them in that sign that there is something that feeds all our hungers. Something that feeds not just our physical hunger, but feeds our intellectual hunger, our spiritual hunger, our emotional hunger. Something that feeds all these hungers. God, Jesus himself. And Jesus says it directly. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never hunger, never thirst. Now, we come to God and we sort of want God to feed us. Certain things, we might ask God, we might ask God, help, we might ask him for physical food, but I don't really see anybody here that's in that dire of straits. But we usually ask him for things like, help Aunt Bessie who's sick, or help me pay this bill, or help me get through this day. These are all good things, but it seems to me we're afraid to go any further than that. We only just want to go a little bit, put a little bit in God's control. Because we're afraid that God will ask us something in return. That is not the case. That is not true. What God wants to do is he wants to feed us. That's what he wants to do. He wants to feed us. Anything that he may ask of us is about feeding us. You see, God is the good stuff. That's what God is when it comes to food. God is the good stuff. God is the best. And we settle for less, for our own things. We set God aside and try to feed ourselves. You know what that is? Stale crackers. I only bring that up because I ate some stale crackers just a little while ago. A couple weeks ago. I forgot to check the package, and man, is that bad stuff. Whoa. Trying to get that out of your mouth, and you don't want to drink water because you're just going to end up drinking that stuff, which is nasty. So you got to sit there and try and get it off your tongue. So it is the stale bread in our life. and how God wants to feed us the good stuff. I don't know about you, but I have many times turned to other things, and it always leaves me empty, dead end, depressed, as I try to feed myself with other things. It's poison. How does God feed us really in this life? God feeds us in relationship. Remember the woman at the well. Jesus fed her, gave her drink, a wellspring. But you know who else was fed in that story? Jesus was fed. Do you remember that part? The disciples come to him and they're asking about food, and Jesus says, I have my own bread. I know I'm badly paraphrasing it, but he says basically, I have food of my own, that which you don't know about. And that was that dinner with that woman, that conversation, that relationship. It actually fed him. That's what, in AA, you got that thirst, and you find out your thirst is wrong. It's put in the wrong place. What you really thirst for is God. What you really thirst for is relationship. And that's what sets you free. The other stuff, you drink more and more of it, and it's just poison. Just makes you sicker and sicker and need more and more. It's about the more we grow our relationship with God, the more we are fed. The more we grow our relationship with God in prayer, the more we are fed. The more we grow our relationship with God in friends and family, the more that we are fed. The more we grow our relationships at work, the more we are fed. These things, I hope, if you've been coming here and know me, hopefully you've heard this before. You've heard me say it's all about relationship. The Trinity is about relationship. It is about relationship in our life, and that's what feeds us. And I've talked about these things, and I want to talk about something else that is often overlooked. What feeds our relationship with God? Are we feeding on the relationship with God in the poor? It's often overlooked. It is powerful. It's one of the things that why Jesus does that, because it powerfully feeds us. We go out to feed the poor, and what happens is the poor feeds us. It's a paradox. But it happens every time. When we go to feed the poor end up feeding us. Try it. Check it out. Isn't it true? Check it out in your life. Test it. I know it's been true in my life. So the challenge is to reach out to the poor. It's nice to give money. It's good to give money, but it's nice and sanitary. We really don't connect with the poor. And what God is calling us to is to really connect with the poor. Some of the great things we can do, you've certainly heard me talk about St. Vincent de Paul in our parish and the food pantry. Those are two great ways, and maybe that's what we're doing in our life, and that's great. But you know what? There's something else that's very close to us that is a great chasm in where we live in proximity. The inner city. And there's just a great chasm. Prejudice, I don't want to go there. And yet it's a great way to connect with God, is in those poor in our life. And you might be saying, well, help the inner city. That's great, Father Chris. Yeah, I'll do that. What does that look like? How does that look practically? And practically, there are many things that the church does in the inner city that we can get involved in. You can get involved in St. Patrick's Center. You can go right on the internet, look up St. Patrick's Center, and you will see on the website a volunteer section. Or maybe we get involved at St. Augustine's on the north side. Get involved in their St. Vincent de Paul, Father Bob's outreach. Or maybe we get involved on the south side at St. Vincent de Paul. They help the homeless. There's all these soup kitchens, all these homeless shelters that we can be involved, that we can break through that chasm, because you will find something. I have found something in my life. Me. In the inner city. And I know if you go looking, you will find you. I know we're probably thinking, well, Father Chris, I'm not going to do that. That's not safe. Feeding the poor is risky. That's just the way it is, period. And Jesus calls us to do something risky. He's always saying, feed the poor. He's always saying that. He wants us to get out of our comfort zone so that we may find Him in places that we would not expect. And then of all things, we will be fed. And there's common sense things to do to make it safer. Like go down there during the day. But we are called to go beyond our comfort zone. And if we have not connected physically with the poor, we are missing something in our life.